Hello and welcome to the second in series of the EI Live Tech Talk webinars. I'm David Kitchener, Managing Director of EI Live and Essential Install magazine. The topic for this broadcast, as you know, is the tomorrow's world of the CI industry. However, without further ado, as they say, let me hand you over to our host and moderator for this session, Davey Curry. Davey's the Managing Director of Infracore, and over to you.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second EI Live Tech Talk webinar. My name is Davey Curry, and I'm going to be your host and moderator for the next 30 minutes. Quick bit of background on the EI Live Tech Talk concept. We are going to be doing 12 shows over 12 months. Each show is going to be fronted by one of our recently assembled Digital Dozen, a team of the great and good from all corners of the industry. Each show, someone's going to front up and bring with them a topic of conversation. We're going to be talking AV, integrated systems, smart homes, smart building, everything from smart cities to smart infrastructure, augmented training through to holographic communication. So onto our panel for today, I'm really delighted to be welcoming in Mr. Chris Turner, who is the MD of Fahrenheit, Will Hopkins, CEO of Intrinsic Group, Andy Oates, Sales Director of Fine Sounds, and also delighted today to be welcoming the Chief Product and Technical Officer from Snap AV, formerly Control4, Amazon, Microsoft, Mr. Charlie Kindle. Welcome, Charlie. So, as David said, our episode today is tomorrow's world of CI, and Chris is going to be taking centre stage on this one. So Chris has been leading technical R&D in the transport, space and defence sectors for most of his career, but is now firmly seated in the CI space, having founded Fahrenheit. So we're going to bring Chris in and see what he's got to say about what's coming up and what's around the corner. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Debbie. So guys, when I was asked to introduce the show today, I thought I'd use a tool called a hype curve. So as you see on the screen at the moment, on the left-hand side, we have some innovation triggers. These are the kind of things that PhD students are working on. In the middle, there's a peak of inflated expectations where everyone assumes that the technology is going to save the world. Then there's a trough where actually it doesn't. And then the technology finds its niche and it plateaus and becomes part of our everyday life. For example, voice control. I've populated this hype curve with a few interesting technologies that I think are relevant. On the left, you have things like smart dust, which is the miniaturization of electronics to a level that it can be embedded in paint. You can just imagine the kind of things we can expect from that, with regard to painting screens on the wall or user interfaces that can be painted on different surfaces, to embedding sensors into our surfaces. The delivery of power is going to have to change, with the rise of micro supercapacitors enabling batteries to be smaller, and wireless mid-range charging becoming standard for all devices, not just your phone. How are we going to be more connected to our home, and how is our home going to learn more about us? We have smart watches, smart rings and phones that measure our vital signs. But think of the possibility if we had physical implants. Our home's ability to adapt to our mood with dynamic playlists or lighting would be huge. Moving along the curve, we have things like conversational AI, which is the technology behind the next generation of voice control. Given that we've got Charlie on the call, I'll leave that one to him. Today we have holograms. But what's the future of volumetric displays? Are we going to be able to touch and feel our displays? And what opportunities does that propose for the custom install industry? Personally, I think this is going to be huge for user interfaces. It will present a unique opportunity for CI to make money again from touchscreens, going above and beyond the iPad. Personally, I also think there's huge potential in smart fabrics. We see some very cool examples of smart fabrics in other industries, but I haven't personally seen yet much done in CI. If anyone knows of any good examples, I'd love to know more. So in particular, I think smart fabrics is one to watch out for, especially in the world of window treatments. So to conclude, this is just a small selection of the technologies on the horizon, but there is so much more to come.
Wow. Concisely done, Chris. That's a lot to cram into sort of 2 or 3 minutes. Fascinating and audacious stuff. I think we should get straight over to our special guest, a pioneer in the tech world, 30 plus years at the front line of delivering household technologies such as Windows Media Center, Alexa Smart Home. Charlie, you like to bet boldly, think big, and act fast. What have you got to say about where Chris is coming from with this? What would you add to that, and how do we actually get there?
Oh, I love that slide, Chris, and I love the way you presented it. It reminds me why I love this space so much. First of all, thank you all for having me. I'm honored to be here. It's a great opportunity to engage with others in this time of the pandemic and kind of get out a little bit. I feel like I've been maybe cooped up a little bit. So thank you again for inviting me. You know, Chris, the idea that we're just at the early stage of so many technologies that are going to come to be, and we also exist in an industry. You know, the pro serve smart home industry has been around for a long time, and the concept of smart home has been around for a long time. I mean, who of you remember X10, right? X10, that power line control network, was invented in 1974. Right? So a lot of this stuff is not actually new from a thinking perspective. And this industry has kind of been poised to take off many times. And it has aspects of it have crossed that chasm that you described to where it's just productive and people love the benefits of it. The thing that your slide really paints the picture of is this is day one for home and technology like this in people's lives. And the complexity that normal human beings have to deal with to get the benefits of that technology is just going to increase. Like, I like to think about the things that will always be true and then focus our energies on addressing those. I think that leads to the most successful businesses. And if we think about that topic, I think the increased amount of technology and the complexity around it is going to continue to increase at a higher and higher rate. And that will always be true. And our entire industry is established to address that truth. You will always require professionals who have the ability and the time to understand the complexities and the details and help that homeowner, that small business owner, navigate it and install it and deploy it and configure it, manage it, maintain it. It's always going to be required. And so this is what excites me about my role at Snap AV and focusing on the entire solution. So great job, Chris. I really think that hit the nail on the head. And you know, what we do, it's what Snap AV is all about, is serving those professionals and making them successful, delivering technology into homes and small businesses.
So we're not, Charlie, I think what you're saying is there's a lot of talk that has been around for maybe a couple of years now, the threat of IoT or plug and play. How does that find its place in moving forward in the industry of the future, and how we're going to think about how we design systems and install these systems, and you know how that's going to shape our business models moving forward?
Yeah, past history is the greatest indicator of future success. And going back in my personal experience building products and technology for the smart home space, something that has not changed and continues to repeat itself is the desire to have this somehow magical plug and play, everything just works together. Back in the day, 1999-ish, at Microsoft, I helped develop universal plug and play. Literally a standard for IoT, IP-based networks. That the promise was to bring all this together. We are now in 2020 and it still doesn't work. And in the interim, there have been probably 3 or 4 dozen other examples of standards like that have come about. And our area, our domain, the smart home technology domain, is the poster child for the good thing about standards is there's so many to choose from. And it sounds negative, but the reality is it's precisely because of the slide that Chris showed us. We live in an environment that is target rich for innovation and competition. And as a result of that, more and more technologies are going to come to bear, and the companies building them, particularly the big guys that are now really deeply involved, the Amazons, the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Facebooks of the world, they have no intrinsic interest in having their products work with the other company's products, especially when they're bringing something brand new out. And so that level of fragmentation and complexity it's just a truth. It's going to be there forever. And our industry and Snap AV is completely committed to delivering professional grade, infrastructure grade solutions that help customers just get the benefit out of it. This house that I'm in, if you look behind me, those who are able to see the video, I have an equipment room in this house. I've been in this house for 16, 17 years. I have a raised floor, drop ceiling, 3 racks of equipment behind me. This house is professionally served, infrastructure grade, and has been that way going back to the early 2000s. And I experienced the full breadth of the smart home experience. I have lighting, climate control, security, entertainment, whole home audio, TVs in multiple rooms where I can watch anything on any screen. All of these scenarios have played out for my family for 16, 17 years. Up until 3 years ago, I had a second job, which was I was my own home IT manager. And it was a stressor for me. I mean, I enjoyed it because it's also a hobby, but it came to the point where it was a job for me, and my family would have an issue or they'd want something new. And guess who had to go and spend time on it? Me. And real human beings, there's a percentage of the population of this world we live in who love that stuff and want to do it. But it's actually a very small percentage.
Yeah.
Let's equate this to home painting. The only time people paint rooms in their house themselves is within the first 3 years of marriage. After that, it's all done professionally. You walk into your local home hardware store that sells residential painting, that industry, the residential painting industry, about 10% of it is do-it-yourself. The other 90% is professionally served. In the home technology space today, 90% of it is roughly do it yourself. Our industry represents a much smaller percentage of that, maybe 10%. It is our belief, and my very strong belief, that Snap AV and our industry, we are going to lead that change where that flips the other way, where 90% of what customers experience in their homes around technology is professionally served. Yeah. And just as people don't do their own plumbing, they're not going to be fiddling around and having a second job as an IT administrator in their home. They're going to have a professional. Yeah. So that's great, Chris. Great kickoff. You allowed me to talk about something I'm almost very passionate. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's reassuring to hear. Big outfit, Snap AV, Charlie. It's reassuring to hear about your investment in the guys on the front line. Us guys, basically, the guys that are out there, so designing the systems, installing the systems, distribution, even just maintaining, looking after all that sort of stuff. It's really encouraging to hear that. Obviously, all us guys have companies in this space. Some from an install background, some manufacturing, distribution. Well, I want to bring you in on this. You obviously have a lot of experience in this space, many different disciplines. What's your thoughts on where Charlie's coming from with that in terms of the place of the professional in our, in the tomorrow's world of our industry?
Yeah, I can see exactly where Charlie's coming from with the decorator analogy. One of the things which I perhaps say on the decorator side of things is we don't decorate because it's difficult, because it's hard work, and it's a real pain that nobody wants to get involved in. On the smart home side of things, today our professional installers make all of that easy. Longer term, we're really probably going to say that the technology has failed us if in 50, 60 years time, from an install point of view, things haven't gotten easier. What we would hope though is the complexity increases, as Charlie said earlier on, but that complexity is going to go more to the manufacturer level. And from an installer level, the actual installation is going to become simpler. So my question really, which would be good to get Charlie's thoughts on, is do you think that the role of the installer is more likely to change? So the installer is going to be more involved in the actual handling of this data, so less on the install and the sale of the equipment, but more on how that data is interpreted, perhaps with the sale of service agreements, service contracts, or even as we start to look more into the intelligence side of the systems, the configuration of the intelligence of the system versus the traditional model where the majority of your money was made on the sale of equipment.
I think there's a lot of that. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is tens and tens of thousands of small businesses. The CI industry is served by these small companies. Some of them are a little bigger, but generally they're categorized as small businesses. And like the entire small business space, they're all different. And everybody has their own model of how what they want to build out of their small business. Some of them have a dream of turning it into something really big. Some of them want to build it to the point where they're making enough money to send the kids to college and have a comfortable life. And that's the focus. And that's awesome. That enables massive scale because those things pop up all the time new and it refreshes. But as a result of that as well, there's different desires around the business model. We are clearly seeing in today's day and age, more and more of those small businesses wanting to turn to a recurring revenue model in addition to being able to get upfront, be an upfront channel for sales of kit. We will see more and more of that. And the fact that these systems, these smart home technologies that go into these homes and small businesses are living, always changing systems means that set it and forget it is no longer the case. They are now systems that need to be managed, monitored, and maintained. And there's a great business there for people who are savvy about it and can build that. And we build the technology that enables that with the Oversee platform, which is our offering from Snap AV for remote monitoring and management of these systems. It's entirely intended to help those small businesses that deploy these systems build RMR-based models where they can keep those customers happy over time, so they're always coming back for more.
Yeah, I think there's.
I think it's sorry, Chris. It's interesting, obviously, to talk about the service side of things, but I know, Chris, that you're heavily involved in the sort of product development side of things, and thinking more about the types of products we're going to see over the next 3, 5, 10 years. What's your thoughts on the future of the sort of accessories, if you like?
Yeah, so I think for me, accessories kind of fall into two categories, really. We've got actuators, things that affect the world, and sensors, obviously, that stuff that kind of brings in information into our control systems that enable us to act on those sensors in the world around us. And I think for actuators, it's going to be obvious that we're going to be able to control everything. I mean, that's clear. Anything that you can imagine that can possibly be controlled is going to be controlled. So I think we're going to see things like moving walls, houses that are going to be able to reconfigure themselves. I think, especially in commercial properties, we already see it with moving walls, but they're going to be automated. Things like glass as well. I think glass today isn't, you get kind of switching glass where it goes frosted, but the ability to actually control the amount of lux through that glass is going to have to happen, I think. And in terms of kind of lighting as there being another actuator, I think we're going to see surfaces becoming light emitting surfaces rather than having spotlights, for example. We're just going to have a surface that will emit light. So I think that's going to drastically change. And in terms of sensors, I think we're going to see things like being able to measure vital signs at a distance rather than actually having physical device on you. I think we touched on it already, but kind of mood sensors, so the ability to actually determine your mood, whether that's through voice or your heartbeat, even being able to remotely measure that. And then floors, again, I think floors are going to become smart. The ability to count the amount of people on the floor, especially in a kind of COVID type occupancy management space. So in a nutshell, I think there's a huge amount of things coming for accessories, and we can just expect that that's going to be wider and broader than it is today.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Andy in. Andy, we've not had a chance to hear from you yet. We've covered quite a lot of ground there, obviously. You're a man who's been around the industry for a long time now and worked in a number of different spaces. What's your thoughts on this? What's jumping out at you here?
I think the obviously first major step was sort of infrastructure, wasn't it? Network and infrastructure. I think the industry became network specialists. I recall teaching people at IP addresses a long time ago. That happened really quickly, and it wasn't that long ago. That sort of formed the sort of foundation and sort of baseline. But for me, I think that sensor and actuator thing is huge. I think that's where, in my feeling, where we are. That's the sort of future now. This idea of I like the idea of the human not always having to engage with technology. I like the idea of that. I like the idea of the building or something engaging with you. That obviously moves us through into the idea of data feedbacks, and obviously systems like Spotify, for example, with profiles that it understands what you're listening to, and it builds your suggested playlists, and they're really, really accurate because of algorithms. So we're at the age of data, we're at the age of algorithms. I think it's absolutely fascinating. From my point of view, maybe a question to throw back to Charlie is maybe on the data, how we pull bits of data from customers in a positive way. I think data can possibly be seen sometimes as a negative, but it's a big positive. What our systems will be able to do is to help us in our lives in many, many technical ways. What's your thoughts on that, Charlie?
Yeah, I think it's great. Your Spotify example is a really good cut-through example. It's very clear that you can now enjoy music in a way you never were able to do with very little work required, because the system is smart, and it's smart because it remembers what you listened to before and the preferences you set, and then it makes suggestions and does things on your behalf. And I think we're going to see that across pretty much every smart home technology scenario. You know, Chris, you again, really brilliant taxonomy, the actuators and sensors model that you articulated. I think there's a really good bridge between that and the environments that we occupy, whether it's a home or a small business, a room, it's even a car for that matter. It could be outside. But if we think about how humans interact with each other, we have our own actuators and we have our own sensors. As I'm speaking, I am using my hands. I've got a little bit of Italian in me, and so I tend to use my hands as part of my presentation, and those are actuators. My muscles are actuators, as well as my vocal cords, which are creating the sound. Likewise, your eyes are your sensors, your ears are your sensors. If we were in person, we didn't have the pandemic, and this was an in live panel, you'd actually be smelling me as well, because I'm putting off pheromones. I'm excited and I'm engaged, and you would sense that. And so what we're going to see in these physical environments that we occupy is the environment itself will have a set of sensors and actuators that will give us an ability to interact with that environment in much the same way we interact with each other. We're starting to see that more and more. It's going to be a long time before it truly is what we've seen in some science fiction, because we have a lot of stuff to do to kind of get the basics and make it actually infrastructure. But I firmly believe we're going there, and it's going to be an amazing opportunity for humanity to do more and experience some of this magic.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, isn't it? As always, we're covering really big subjects during the time that we've given ourselves. So listen, guys, we're going to move on to some Q&A, if that's all right with you guys. We've got a couple of questions lined up, which we got in previously via social media. So I think we've got Dave Wilson from Dizzy Fish, who's got a question for Charlie. Dave, can you share your video and put your question forward? Good to see you, Dave.
Thanks for having us on. It's a question for Charlie, really, that touches on what Chris was talking about. So it's given the thought that smart home equipment can react to your moods and your physical emotions. Do you think it'll ever go the other way, where your actual smart home equipment could influence your moods and physical emotions? If you're feeling angry or upset, it could change the lighting and change the mood to handle that.
Absolutely. I actually think the Spotify example that Andy brought up is spot on there. Music has such an influence on how we feel. I mean, it's proven that music can make us happy, make us sad, reinforce us. And so we see that already today, because isn't that what Spotify is doing, right? We're indicating via an actuator, perhaps by selecting a starting genre, a signal. We're basically signaling to the system how we're feeling. And then that system is reacting. And if it's doing its job right, it's building a playlist that reacts and influences me. So absolutely, Dave. I think that's a part of this world that we're going to be living in with just this delightful technology that's built into the environments that we occupy.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Is that wearables, Charlie? Is that wearables, or are we talking bio implants here?
I love bragging about this. Have you heard of the Oura Ring?
Yeah. It's
a ring from this Danish company. It's got Bluetooth, it's got heart rate sensor, temperature sensor. The battery lasts for a week and it tracks my sleep. And so it's not yet, well, it is actually influencing how I feel, because based on what the app tells me and the feedback, it makes me sleep better. That influences my mood. So that's another great example that wearables are part of this as well.
I think it's, we need to emphasize that this is all about improving our lifestyles, improving our lives, improving our living environments. I think that's a really important thing to get across. Listen, guys, we're going to quickly move on. We're going to grab another question. We've got another one lined up. I think we've got Colin Urie from Gallo Acoustics, who's going to come in and put a question to Chris, I believe. Hi, Colin.
Guys, thanks for including me. Yeah, question for Chris. We've watched the Fire-Lite brand grow, and he's a bit of a futurologist. I enjoy chatting to him. So you've discussed the future of accessories. More specifically, what do you see as the future of sensors?
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, everyone probably wants me to talk about motion sensors, right? But I think really we're going to see, in terms of motion sensing and tracking people around the home, I think we're going to move to having kind of one central sensor in the house and move to the concept of what I call like local geofencing, right? So you're going to be able to locally geofence and say, is there a person in this area of the house or this area of the house? And the idea of beam patterns will just go, and we'll just have these like geo zones, basically, that's in a kind of radar type system. So I think that's where kind of sensors is going to go, clearly, and it's not available today, by the way. And then in terms of kind of another angle, I think we're going to see a bigger focus on disease sensors, or some kind of biological sensor is clear. If someone's not working on that, they should be. There's going to be massive demand for any type of air quality, disease, biological type sensors. So that's where I think it's going to go.
Absolutely, that's going to be a real game changer, Chris. I think I think we've touched on it previously. This idea of not so much the control side of things and how we've done it previously, more about passive intelligence, if you like, and how that's going to change that whole space. And obviously not just COVID, any virus, I think, to tackle it from that angle.
In a dynamic way, maybe even in a learning way. Can we use these sensors to learn from the environment and feed back to the scientists as well? So, imagine if we all had sensors in our home now determining this. Think of the amount of data they'd have to, do good in the world. It's huge.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I mean, that's guys, that's been absolutely fantastic. We're running out of time. We had some questions lined up in the chat, which we'll pick back up on after today's broadcast. Get it out on social media. Mr. Kitchener's going to be stepping in on that. But so guys, thanks very much. Thanks to Will, thank you, Chris, thank you, Andy, thank you very much, Charlie, and thanks to Dave and Colin for coming up and asking a question. So guys, we're doing it again in a month's time. We have got the godfather of Crestron programming, creative genius and all-round good guy, Cliff Stammers, is going to be coming in fronting our episode. He's going to be talking to us about what the smart infrastructure is going to look like in the future. We're going to be talking Wi-Fi, Li-Fi, 5G, all that sort of stuff, and helping supporting Cliff on the next episode is going to be Ollie Morgan, Director of Blend Technology Consultants, and my friend Alan White from MD at Holborn Group. So guys, please catch us on social media. Please pre-register and join us next month, same time, same place. Until then, onwards and upwards. Bye for now.